Welcome to stage 8 of Misspoke, a cycling podcast during the coronavirus pandemic. And it's recorded during lockdown. Now, I was previously recording these podcasts in my garage, but I decided that the sound of cars going past, even though there are fewer than usual, was still pretty noisy and rather interfered with your enjoyment of this podcast. So I've decided to come up to my son's bedroom and shut the door and try and record in here in my new studio, and hopefully we won't have too many extraneous sounds. Now, a few special things for you in this podcast. I'm going to start off with a short story, and this one is called A Farewell to Armstrong, and with apologies to Ernest Hemingway. Pilar sat stern and remote in the stern of Pilar, while Ernest sat athwart. The old wooden boat rocked on the gentle swell. The boat was fine, very fine, when they found it. It had always been fine, and it was still fine. The waves were white-flecked. The big fish were below, waiting with bated breath for the baited lines. These were good days when the marlin bit, and you caught some and cooked them buried in hot coals on the beach by the big house on the hill. And you had a glass or two of dry white wine to drink with it, and that was fine too. The strong sun was warm and yellow, the few clouds soft in the sky. Ernest cradled his daiquiri. Lady Betsy lounged on the lounger. "I saw him," she said. "Who?" said Ernest. "Him, Lance." "When?" "In hospital. I was there." "I know," said Ernest. "He's a liar." "I know. They were bad times before the war, before everything. In Paris, before the war." "What war? The first or second?" Betsy looked at him with contempt. Her ash-grey eyes were the colour of the grey ash on the cigarette held delicately between her fingers. "You know very well," she said. "The war of words between us." "I know," said Ernest. "You don't," said Betsy. "You weren't there." Ernest sighed. "I read Walsh's book," he said. "I know all about it." "Walsh wasn't there," said Betsy. "Walsh is never there," said Ernest. Pilar rocked on the ocean. They were good fish when the fish bit, but they did not always bite. And when they did not bite, they were bad fish. He hated the bad fish. If only they were all good fish, like the bulls. The bulls were different. They were strong and dark, with 4 legs and powerful muscles, like cyclists. "The bulls, they are like cyclists," he said. Pilar stretched her legs and unwrapped a big Cuban cigar and lit it and threw the match overboard. "But with 2 legs," she said. "2 legs good, 4 legs bad," said Ernest. "He's a cheat," said Betsy. "Your husband was a cheat," said Pilar, looking stern in the stern. "You take that back," flared Betsy. "It's true," said Pilar. "You know it's true." "Lance made him do it. Lance bullied everyone. That whole team, none of them wanted to dope, but Lance said they had to. Him and Johan, it was them." "It was all of you," said Pilar. "I told him, don't do it," said Betsy. "I told Frankie, don't do it, or we're through." "And were you through?" asked Ernest. "No," said Betsy. "They were bad times." "But he won 7 tours," said Ernest. "They can't take that away from him." "What are you talking about?" said Betsy. "They can, and they did. You know that. He's been stripped of his 7 tours. "You know what I mean," said Ernest. "And they banned him for life." "Good. I hope he rots in hell," said Betsy. "It's not fair," said Pilar. "Why does he get banned for life and all those other cheats? They do a short ban and they come back. Like Miller. He was a drug cheat and he was only banned for a couple of years, and now he's everywhere, him and that Ned Boulting on his Brompton." "Ned Boulting never won a tour," said Ernest. "Nor did Miller." "Nor did Lance," said Betsy. "Not now. They're equal." "Not quite," said Pilar. "Did you hear his podcast?" asked Ernest. "During the tour?" "I don't want to hear him or see him ever again," said Betsy. "He was good," said Ernest. "He knows his stuff. You've got to admit that. George Hincapie was on it too. He was good. I liked him." "Hincapie doped," said Pilar. "Tyler Hamilton doped. Landis doped. They all doped." "They were different times," said Ernest. "You had to dope if you wanted to win. Lance was a better doper, that's all. No, Lance was worse, said Betsy. He was mean to people, mean and cruel and vicious. Nothing in the UCI rules about being mean and cruel and vicious, said Ernest. It's not right, said Betsy. None of it's right. Bradley Wiggins rates him. Lance, I mean, said Ernest. It's in his book, Icons. Yes, said Betsy. Wiggins is suspect. Wiggins is suspect. You take that back, said Pilar. Pilar liked Wiggins. He's witty and irreverent and was a great champion. Betsy gazed at the water and sipped from her chilly bottle. The wind started to blow. There was a chill in the air, a chill between them and a chill blowing between them. Ernest steered the boat through the choppy waters and tied up at the dock. It was a good dock, one of the best, made of wood, like the velodrome in Paris before the war, when they had been happy and rode together and no one cared about the drugs and the cheating, when they had all been friends, before the cancer and the sadness and the millions for charity. He raised a lot of money, said Ernest. Live strong. He sold a lot of yellow bands. You can't take that away from him. I hate him, said Betsy. I don't care about the money. I'm not wearing a yellow band. Pilar had drunk too much and was drunk. She tossed her cigar overboard. It fizzed as it hit the water. Live strong, die old, make a lot of money, she said. Lance is broken now, said Betsy. I'm glad. He can't hurt us anymore. And, as I said at the beginning, with apologies to Ernest Hemingway. And now a word from my sponsor. And as I've said in previous stages of the Misspoke podcast, I don't actually have a sponsor. So I'm picking companies and brands to do with cycling that I suppose I quite like for various reasons. And this time I'm going to talk about Mason cycles. And one of the reasons for that is I have a Mason definition. And it is probably the best bike I have ever owned and ever ridden. It's made of aluminium tubes, designed in Britain but made in Italy and assembled in Italy and I think painted in Italy. And then the frames are brought back to this country by Don Mason and his team and built up into a bike. I bought a Mason definition. Now, when was it? It was not long after I retired, so it was in 2016, yes, around about 4 years ago. And I had it built up with Dura Ace. Yes, Dura Ace Di2. It was going to be my forever bike. Is there ever a forever bike? Doesn't matter how good a bike is, I think you always want another one. And I wanted another one and I've bought a few since. But I loved that Mason definition. I've ridden it in lots of places around the world. It's been up Ventoux for the Sangley de Ventoux 3 since in around about 12 hours. And it's been to plenty of other places as well. Went to the Dolomites with me, went to Spain. Did he go to Spain with me? Yes, and it's been on a number of cobbled classics as well, including Amstel Gold. I used it on Liege, Bastogne, Liege, and I've used it on the Tour of Flanders. So the Mason definition made by Mason Cycles down in Sussex. It's a wonderful bike and highly recommended. So Mason Cycles, sponsor of Stage 8 of Misspoke, a cycling podcast. And now I want to continue with my autobiographical memoir entitled My Life in Bikes. And anyone who's interested in cycling loves bikes. We always say to other people we meet, what sort of bike have you got? How many bikes have you got? What's your favourite bike? So if you missed the first part of My Life in Bikes, you can catch it in stage 7 of this Misspoke series of podcasts anyway. Roberts Audax, 2010. I went to Roberts Cycles in Croydon. I remembered them from my younger days when they were in Penge and had a long discussion with them about buying a bespoke bike. I said to them that I wanted something that could be ridden around the world if necessary, so it needed front and rear rack mounts, Campagnolo group set but Shimano long drop brakes, a triple chain set, steel frame, Brooks saddle, hand-built Harry Rowland wheels, the works. When it came time to choosing the colour, I found a dark blue matte which seemed just right. I saw some tubes in the shop which had a metal band around them, and I said that I liked them and wanted that design. It's not a colour, they said. It's a coupling. It allows you to take the frame apart. No, I said, because I'd never heard of it. So they explained the principle behind the S&S coupling, a steel band on the down tube and the top tube, which could be unscrewed to separate the frame. I don't believe it, I said, like that fellow in the TV show whose name escapes me, Richard someone. Does it work? Oh yes, it works, the man said. I asked him the price and nearly fainted. I can't justify that, I said. But that evening I was thinking about it, and I thought, what the hell? You're only going to buy one bike. Make it a good one. Plus I could take it apart and fly somewhere exotic with it. And so the next day I phoned them and said to go ahead, add it. Specialised Alley, 2008. Shortly afterwards, my wife got talking to a woman at the bus stop who said her husband was away in France watching the Tour de France. And my wife said, as wives do, my husband is getting into cycling. And this woman said her husband belonged to a little cycling club which he really enjoyed, and maybe I should try it. And so I joined the old Portland Cycling Club and found that I really enjoyed cycling on the road with them, and with it the idea of cycle touring began to fade. I was riding a Specialised Alley, which I'd had for a few years but never really used, too busy driving my sports cars. Aluminium, black, a perfectly fine workhorse bike with Shimano Tiagra gears, good enough for me as I was then. I wasn't very good though. The first club run I joined, I had to dismount on the first hill we came to. I said it was because I didn't change gear in time, but that wasn't true. I couldn't manage the hill. I was so embarrassed, although nobody said anything, at least not that I heard. So the next day I went out by myself, determined to tackle that hill, and managed it, just. By the time the Roberts was ready, I was a bit stronger and was well into my road cycling. It's got a triple chain set, the other members said when I turned up on it for the first time. Triple chain sets were frowned upon. It's got front and rear racks, someone said. Are you going round the world or what? I wasn't. What's that coupling? Someone asked. I explained. Bet that was expensive, someone said. Yep. To be honest, I never tried the coupling, although I have no reason to think it didn't work. It needed a special spanner, which I put somewhere safe, and then I couldn't find. Just as well, really. But I bought a lightweight rear rack and a big saddlebag with fold-down panniers, just in case, so that when I went touring, I would have somewhere to put my bivvy bag, my toothbrush, my spare socks, and my American Express card. It was a fine bike and rolled like a dream, smooth and very comfortable, and when you got the momentum up, being so heavy, it steamed ahead for miles, but due to the touring geometry, it was virtually impossible to get out of the saddle on a climb. It was designed for seated, steady plodding across the Nullarbor Plain or the back roads of the Hindu Kush, loaded down with panniers and unleavened bread, spare socks and 40 maps. Not for a fast 35 miles around the Kent roads. The club organised a weekend in Eastbourne, 65 miles down and 65 miles back, and I rode it for that, and it was ideal. But it wasn't fast, or fast enough, although the triple chainset was perfect for grinding up to Beachy Head. I started to think of getting something a bit sportier. That was the second part of my life in bikes, and make sure you tune in to stage 9 of Misspoke if you want to see where my bike collection went next. And now for another one of my cycling monologues, my affectionate cycling monologues. And this one is called The Cycle Tour. So anyway, I've been going touring for about 20 years now. I love it. I can carry everything on the bike. I've got it down to a fine art. I don't carry anything I don't need. My bike is a Pearson. It's got a triple chain set. I don't really need it, but it's nice to have. I have a set of Ortlieb panniers, which are like totally waterproof. I've had them for years. And I've got this Caradai saddlebag. Holds a ton of stuff. The last trip I did was in Spain, 60 miles a day, just pootling along. No, I don't get lonely. There's such camaraderie on the road. You meet up with other cyclists and camp together. I use this website to arrange stuff. I've done loads of trips, Lake District, France, Ireland, Italy. That was fabulous. I want to do South America one day, north to south. That would be great. You have to be self-sufficient and able to do repairs. My forks snapped once, I was in Iran, but I found a blacksmith. They didn't speak English and I don't speak Iranian. Who does? But I managed to get by. It turns out he was a Spurs supporter, so that put an end to that. You need a sleeping mat. That's the best thing to carry. You need a decent night's sleep. I've been in the CTC for years. It's such a great community. People share their roots and stories. I'm going to write a book one of these days, like that woman. What's her name? Anyway, the stories I could tell. They say everyone's got one book in them. I don't know where mine is. I can't remember any right now, but I'll put them all in the book. I must have taken thousands of photos. Some of them are just amazing. I'm going to sort them all out one day. I carry 2 pairs of shorts, a shirt, 2 pairs of socks, camping gear, fleece and my rain stuff. You've got to have rain stuff because you're going to get caught in a storm. I hate it, to be honest with you. It gets so lonely and the campsites are bleak and miserable shitholes and no one talks to you. I can't stand the Lake District. Bloody hills up, down, all the bloody time. I hate youth hostels. Youth, that's a laugh. There's no one under 70. They're so cold. You know what I dream of? A nice hotel with a pool, somewhere hot, buffet breakfast, sunshine, someone to talk to. I hate touring. Always have, but what can you do? Credit card touring, don't make me laugh. I can't get a credit card. I'd stop now if I could. I'm never going to write anything. I'd sell all this gear on eBay if I could, but it's worthless now. God, I'm so tired. I wouldn't mind going to Cuba. And to finish this episode or this stage of the Misspoke podcast, we've got another chapter in my novella about the Liege, Bastogne, Liege sportive. And this is called The Monument. And if you want to see, or if you want to hear, the first few chapters of The Monument, then go back and look at or listen to the other stages in my podcast. And if you want to buy the book, you can get it from Amazon. Just search for my name, Julian Hutchings, on Amazon, or just look up The Monument. Anyway, this is chapter 5 in The Monument. They left the cafe and got their bikes from round the back and rode off and waited at the traffic lights. "You cool?" said Eric. "You're already talking like a gangster," said Clovis. "We're not gangsters," said Eric. "Not yet, maybe." "I thought you were cool with it." "I'm cool," said Clovis as the lights changed and they rolled down the hill. When Clovis got home, he sat down at his computer and Googled drug smuggling. He remembered how many years earlier he had read a book called Snowblind, which was about an American who had become a major cocaine smuggler and had developed many inventive ways of bringing cocaine into the US. One of the methods was a fake competition won by an elderly New York couple, and the prize was a trip to Colombia. While there, they were presented with a series of carved artefacts as part of their prize, which they then brought back to the States, completely unaware that the artefacts were stuffed full of cocaine. His wife came into the room while he was Googling. "What are you looking at?" she said. "Oh, nothing. Not porn, is it?" "No." He wished it had been. "Is it bike porn?" "It's a bike, isn't it? You're getting a new bike, aren't you?" "I'm not." "Don't lie to me," she said. "I know you. I've been married to you for 30 years. I know you well enough by now." "OK," said Clovis. "I give in. I'm getting a new bike." "I knew it," she said. "I bloody knew it. Bike for you, bugger all for me. Story of my life." Eric's wife had passed away a few years before, and his small flat was now too big, empty and echoing, missing her laughter and her joy. He kept his bike in his bedroom, not having a garage or a garden, and not having anyone to hide it from. There was a special bracket on the wall, and the bike hung there like an ornament or a painting, something to watch as he lay in bed and there was nothing on the telly. He made himself chicken salad, dry packet chicken slices, lettuce, cucumber, tomato, no mayonnaise or dressing of any kind. It was cold and green and tasteless, and the chicken stuck to the roof of his mouth. He had to use his tongue to scrape it off his palate, and texted Clovis. "You cool?" Clovis was surfing the internet, finding bike builder websites and building his perfect steed. He fancied Campagnola EPS 12-speed gears, carbon wheels, maybe a Pinarello or a Cipollini frame. Too stiff for him, probably, but you could dream. "I'm cool," he texted back. $5,000 wasn't enough for a Pinarello, but it would make a fair down payment. Or steel. Why not steel? Steel was real and steel was in, and there were plenty of young up-and-coming frame builders operating in his part of South London. He liked Karen Hartley, liked the idea of a bike built by a woman, Wanted something different from the herd. Special paint job, hand-built wheels. It was taking shape already. You've been listening to Stage 8 of Misspoke, a cycling podcast. Make sure you listen in to catch Stage 9 coming soon to a podcast channel near you.